What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about SoFi, had a pretty interesting day. All in all, I want to go over some of the data points, what big money did, and what it might be alluding to is coming next week. Before we get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi went down 5.44%. $1 million question. Why does SoFi always get hit more than the broader market? I wish I had an answer for you. Wall Street just clearly hates SoFi. But aside from that, 1397 the low, 1471 the high. You did see a lot of volume, so that's kind of a good thing. That wasn't necessarily occurring with every stock today. So 75.7 million shares being traded. 59.8 is the average. So throughout the trading day, you had a lot of mixed emotions. Initially, you had a lot of fear, which caused the pullback. Then you had a nice little bit of a recovery. And that was ultimately the market believing that Iran was not going to attack and retaliate against Israel. Because even though that they stated that they're going to retaliate like 15, 20 times, market kind of just saw it as boy who cried wolf. So you had a little bit of a recovery, and then unfortunately they did attack. And as you can kind of see, this was posted 2 hours ago. So that's ultimately where the crap hit the fan, unfortunately. So it wasn't the best day, but we did actually have some good data on a flip side, if you want to kind of think glass half full type of scenario. So Michigan consumer sentiment came in at 60.5, forecast of 52.1. If we didn't have all this stuff happening, this data point would have really pushed the market higher. But as I mentioned in my pre-market video, it was kind of a lose-lose scenario, because if this data was to have come in better than anticipated, as it did, it would have just got brushed under the rug. If it was going to be negative, it'd really escalate the downtrend. So it was just meant to be a bad day, I think, overall. Happy Friday the 13th, everyone. But specific to SoFi, though, no news, no SEC filings. It was just at the mercy of the broader market. As far as shorts, though, they did return 108,000 shares today. 12.92% of the free floats being shorted works out to be 140 million shares. And that's essentially $2.09 billion. So a lot of shorts are in SoFi. But when it came down to them kind of doing deals today, they didn't really do anything up until roughly 17:30 GMT. So that is roughly around here. So they took advantage of the sell-off and they returned roughly around 400,000 to 500,000 shares during that kind of period right here. So this big spike, that was essentially them. So it's unfortunate that shorts can return and it didn't really impact the stock price whatsoever. But I think if shorts, or even if the stock price was to have been closer to that 1450, then shorts might have woken up a little bit. That would be linked to obviously options. But quickly going over here for the options, you did have 17 million in calls, 5.9 million in puts. 49% of all the options being done were bearish in nature. So clearly big money is anticipating for a lot of this negativity to roll over into next week. So not the best, but on a side note, you are seeing a abnormal kind of bump up in overall like premiums. So today was 22.9 and yesterday was 30.6, 29.2 the day prior. So big money is definitely looking at SoFi, even though we've had somewhat hit and miss lower common stock value and dollar value getting in, but through options, definitely it's seeing a nice bump up. So that's welcoming, which could insinuate that they feel big moves are coming. $1 million question, I guess, as well for that is with what direction. But aside from that, though, with it where it did close from the bulls, they are anticipating for it to kind of be roughly around that 1450 to 15 going into next week. Bears are anticipating more kind of blood and for it to be sub 13. So there's more kind of pain anticipated based on that. But with today being Friday, you do have 11,000 at that 14 for the open interest, and then 30,000 at that 1450, 25,000 at that 15, 27,000 at that 1550. So you ultimately have 11,000 in the money, so worked out to be 1.1 million shares. There was some abnormal transactions being done after hours today, and based on at least what happened with the price, someone was buying, so it's fair to assume, given the circumstances, market makers were already covering those options. So you had 1.25 million, 3.5 million, and then 1.7 million in overall transactions. Still doesn't really equate to that 1.1, so you still might see some buying going into next week, but stay tuned for my video over the weekend where I go over a lot of expectations and whatever else for this week. But ultimately you have that 1450 and above all expiring worthless, and that is a lot there. It's really unfortunate that SoFi couldn't have closed above that 1550 by this week, because that would have been a pretty nice little gamma squeeze potentially. But aside from that, looking on the secondary market, you had a lot of selling, a lot of pockets of selling. Dark pool, you saw a lot of transactions as per usual. A lot of this is linked to big money as well as shorts. So like I said, shorts didn't really do all that much. So all of these were actual transactions, hedge funds trading SoFi. But even though they were still kind of selling, obviously every time there's a seller, there's a buyer. So still, at least big money's been really looking at SoFi. So that's kind of again, glass half full type of optimistic viewpoint. But with it closing at 1409, it did close between this R1 and the pivot. So 1350 is going to be a strong support, and then 1440 is going to be that next strong target / resistance. And leading into today, I did mention that 1440 was going to be a key pivot. Kind of flirted with that initially, but regrettably no dice, no new analyst ratings either. So you had that $20 one that came out a couple days ago, no new articles really coming out either. So it was kind of just, again, at the mercy of the broader market. But aside from that though, on the actual chart itself, still above that 100-day moving average. So that's going to be a key one to really watch for. Super trend is at 1312, and then you have that 50 and also 200-day moving averages pretty much right beside each other at 1270. So next week is going to be a very big week. If this does roll over and a lot of the fear and whatever else, then this is where you could see either a significant pull down sub 1250 potentially, or it could bounce off that 100-day moving average if things kind of subside a little bit. So we'll just have to wait and see how things do develop over the weekend. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Did you buy? Did you sell? I did buy during the overnight yesterday at 1409. I thought at the time it was a screaming buying opportunity, but lo and behold, that's actually where it landed anyways. But whatever, it is what it is. I thought it was a good deal, so I'm not regretting it whatsoever. So let me know your thoughts. Hopefully everyone has a good weekend. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon and give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Even though with all this crap happening, I did have a stock that I put as a buy signal early this week, 2x. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.